If you're buying or selling in Charlotte and using the same strategy for every neighborhood, you're already behind. The market is split into two and each side is playing by its own rules. Today, I'll show you what to do no matter which side you land on. There's also one price band in this city that works differently from the rest, and it's worth understanding before you make your next move. Want to know why this market has been so hard to read lately? Close to 2 in 5 Charlotte listings have already taken a price cut before selling. At the same time, the trophy neighborhoods like Myers Park, Eastover, and the established character areas throughout the city are still moving in about 30 days. Both headlines are true at the same time. Same city, but it feels like a different world. And where your home sits changes the entire strategy. A buyer shopping Ballantyne at the same price point as Myers Park is in a different game. So let's start with the side where the buyers have the most power. The $1 million to $2 million range owns that spot. And if you've been watching Charlotte real estate over the past few years, this is a change that you can feel. In Ballantyne and the suburban new construction areas throughout South Charlotte, homes have gone from selling in under a month to sitting for 2 months or more on average. Inventory in this price band has been climbing, giving buyers more leverage than they had a year or two ago. Sellers are accepting contingencies, rate buydowns, and closing cost credits just to get to the closing table. If you've been waiting for real negotiating power, this is where you're seeing it. And the reason comes down to rate math. At today's rates, the monthly payment on a home in the mid $1 million range is about $2,500 more per month than that same loan at 3%. That's close to $30K a year in added costs. The group of buyers who can take that on without blinking is smaller than it was when rates were half of what they are now. So you have more homes, fewer buyers, and sellers who are willing to work more with you. A little later, when we get into seller strategy, I'll show you the mistake that's costing listings in this range months of market of time and how to avoid it from day one. On top of that, builders are also offering real concessions like closing cost credits, rate buydowns through preferred lenders, and flex cash for upgrades. If you're comparing a resale in Ballantyne to new construction nearby, get the builder's incentive sheet before you make any decisions. A resale that ignores that competition is already starting before the showing even happens. And this is why knowing your side of the market is so important. If you're buying or selling in Charlotte right now and want to know where that situation lands, that's the conversation I have with clients every day. Whether you're in a pocket with leverage or one where you need to move fast, I can walk you through what the data looks like for your price range and neighborhood. My contact info is in the description below. Now, let's take a look at the other side of the split. Once you get into established character neighborhoods, it becomes a different conversation. I'm talking about places like Myers Park, Eastover, Sherwood Forest, and Madison Park. While inventory has stacked up in Ballantyne, Eastover has just a handful of homes listed at any given moment. Sherwood Forest days on market dropped compared to last year, moving in the opposite direction of the broader city. Myers Park is still moving in about 30 days with prices up year over year. These areas are desirable, but the bigger point is that you can't recreate them. You can't just build Myers Park. The tree canopy took decades to grow. The street layout, the walkability, the proximity to uptown. No suburban developer can make that from scratch. And the buyers who want it know that. Above this price point in the right established neighborhood, a good share of transactions happen without a traditional mortgage at all. You're seeing cash purchases, portfolio loans, and other structures that sit outside the normal mortgage rate conversation. The buyer writing a check for a $3 million Myers Park home estate is working different math than the buyer stretching into a $1.5 million suburban build. Keep that buyer profile difference in mind because it sets up the whole seller strategy that we'll get into later. And the condition is still non-negotiable here. Buyers giving up a 2.5 or 3% interest rate walk into showings expecting the home to feel dialed in. They're not settling for dated kitchens or deferred maintenance just because the neighborhood is desirable. These pockets still have a high floor, but a poorly presented home doesn't have the same ceiling it had 2 years ago. Properly priced, well-presented homes are not sitting. The 2021 playbook, where almost any listing in Myers Park got bid up regardless of condition, is retired. What's driving all of this on both sides of the split comes down to what mortgage rates are doing to different types of buyers across the city. We're waiting for rates to come down before we make a move. I hear this all the time. Rates are real. The problem is that some buyers and sellers are building their whole strategy around a drop that may not come soon. The 30-year fixed is sitting around 6.5% right now. Fannie Mae's official forecast has rates staying in the low to mid 6% range through the end of 2026 and into 2027. The Mortgage Bankers Association has a similar outlook. Neither one is calling for a major drop. Nobody credible is predicting a return to 3%. So this is the rate environment that we're working with. Not a quick pause before everything goes back to the way that it was. And rates aren't hitting every price point the same way. At the entry level, rates are a real affordability wall, and you can see it in that segment's activity. In the $700K to $1.5 million range outside the prime established neighborhoods, the friction is the heaviest. Sellers in that range are feeling it most. But this is the surprising part, and it's one of the most useful things to understand if you're shopping right now in this market. Buyers capped around $2 million in the right established neighborhoods are still moving. And if you want less competition and the ability to get more of what's on your list without a bidding war, you need to be in the $2 million to $3 million range or above in the right area. At that level, supply is tight. Many buyers are working outside a traditional mortgage. So the usual rate pressure doesn't hit the same way. Pending sales across the city were up meaningfully year over year this spring. It means demand is still there, just more concentrated. Now, rate sensitivity and buying power move in opposite directions. The more a buyer depends on a large mortgage, the more every rate move affects them. A buyer who can write a check doesn't feel that pressure the same way. That gap explains the whole Charlotte split, and it's what shapes the strategy you need, whether you're buying or selling. The two sides of this market need two different approaches. The mistake I keep seeing buyers make is assuming the broad headlines apply everywhere. They don't. If you read that inventory is up and days on market are stretching out, then walk into a Myers Park showing with that mindset. You could lose a home that you really wanted. I've watched buyers hesitate on a well-priced home in an established neighborhood because they thought they had room to negotiate. By the time they came back with an offer, it was already under contract. The clearest way to know which side you're in is to look at the comps. How does the price compare to what has sold? What is the condition of the home like? If it's overpriced, you might have some wiggle room to negotiate, such as a lower purchase price or getting the seller to cover the closing costs. Chances are, though, you don't. The market moves quickly here, even with rates in the sixes. If you have real leverage in Ballantyne or the suburban new construction areas, use it. Ask about closing cost credits or about an offer contingent on the sale of another home. Look at the price reduction history and days on market before you submit anything. The seller already knows where they stand. You don't have to act like you don't have options, but in the established, supply-constrained neighborhoods, you need to move with intention. Hesitation has a real cost there. A well-priced, well-presented home in Sherwood Forest isn't waiting around. It could be under contract the same day or maybe the day after. What I mean is, the window between a listing going live and going under contract in these pockets is short, so you'll need to move like it. Close to 1 in 5 listings around here has already taken a price cut before selling. Most of the homes don't have anything wrong with them. They just came out at the wrong price. Once a home crosses the 20-ish day mark in a market where buyers have choices, the question becomes, why hasn't anyone bought it yet? And once that thought gets in a buyer's head, staging and weekend open houses can only do so much. Every extra week on the market makes the sale harder. There's a documented case here that shows this clearly. A home sits for almost 5 months at the wrong price. It expired, comes back correctly priced, and then goes under contract in 3 weeks. The seller lost those months and had to reset anyway. The right price on day one would have gotten them to the same place without the grind. For sellers in Ballantyne and the suburban areas, you're also competing with builders offering real concessions like closing cost credits, rate buydowns, and design packages. A buyer looking at your resale can go nearby and get a brand new build with financial incentives built in. A listing that doesn't account for that is starting behind. So presentation and pricing precision are the difference between a smooth sale and a 6-month grind. For sellers in Myers Park, Eastover, and Sherwood Forest, you're in a stronger position. Supply is tight and demand is real, and prices are holding or appreciating while much of the city has softened. That gives you real leverage, but it's not a blank check. Buyers giving up a low rate walk into showings expecting the home to be ready, staged, priced right, and presented well. A move-in ready home and a dated one are different products, and the market prices them that way. Sellers who treat this like 2021 and put the listing on autopilot are leaving money on the table in any neighborhood. The single biggest variable in your outcome is the submarket that your specific home is in, and that's a conversation worth having before you do anything else. At the end of the day, the Charlotte market gets a lot easier to read once you stop treating it like one market. If you're trying to figure out which side of the split you're on and what your next move should be, email me at gracie.griffin@compass.com. I'll tell you where your price range and target neighborhood stand, so you can move with the right strategy before conditions shift again. And if this video helped you make sense of what's happening in Charlotte, hit subscribe. I cover the market this way every week. No fluff, just what's worth knowing right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.